Hello, my dear friends. It's me again, Igor Pogodin, and we're continuing our journey of self-discovery. And in today's video, we'll try to talk about the topic, how to stop fighting what cannot be changed. After all, this is probably one of the most significant, perhaps biggest and most painful problems. It seems to me that this is actually the main source of human suffering. Everyone knows this prayer. It goes something like, God, grant me the strength to change what I can change, the serenity or patience to accept what I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And wisdom is considered precisely the ability to distinguish what I can change in my life from what I cannot change in my life. The problem is that in our lives, we are not guided by life itself. We are not truly living life. Our biggest problem is that we are constantly viewing everything that happens in our lives through the lens of how much it matches our own concepts. That is, all the time, somewhere behind you, to your right, to your left, or inside you, there is this commentator. Sometimes it's called personality, identity. In psychotherapy, it's called experiences. I call it the self-paradigm. It's a certain set of concepts with which, mistaking your, more precisely, out of cowardice, out of fear, you have identified yourself. Because life in its purest form is searing. Just like in those well-known biblical stories, when God descended to earth to speak with people, he usually sent angels and a particular figure called the Eye of God, because the very presence of God in its pure form would be destructive for a human being. Why does this happen? The presence of God is destructive only for concepts. And for hundreds or even thousands of years, the destruction of the concepts with which we identify ourselves has probably been one of the most desired processes or outcomes for many people. But for an even greater number of people, and incomparably greater number, it is a source of terror. To stop, to cease to exist, and to disappear. All of clinical psychology and psychiatry is based on the overvaluation of the personality. That is, if a person stops orienting themselves within their personality, time and space are elements of a concept, attributes of a concept. In reality, there is no such thing as time and space. There is only the total now and the total everywhere. And that is your true nature. But by defining yourself as just some small being, this small being is now set in opposition to life itself. If we were to truly embrace our entire life, everything that is happening in the world around us, we would have absolutely nothing to fear. We would not need to fight at all. We would not need to feel any terror, whether sacred or otherwise, before the truly vast and immense machine of existence that could potentially crush us completely. And we ourselves consider ourselves separate from this terrifying machine, which only became a terrifying machine the moment we started seeing ourselves as separate. This story is described, if you remember, in the book of Genesis. It's the well-known story of original sin, the story with the apple, or rather, the story when Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden. Before that, there were no differences between them and the Lord. But only after tasting the fruit from the tree of knowledge did they realize their difference from God. And after that, God quite justly, as described in the book of Genesis, though it is a rather angry, almost bloody episode without mincing words, sends them to eternal suffering on earth from the Garden of Eden and curses Adam, Eve, and the serpent. And really, if you read the book of Genesis, it makes your hair stand on end all over your body. But in reality, it was man himself who did this. God never objected to man remaining in the Garden of Eden. And you are still there, but you think you are that very one. It's a kind of hallucinational dream, a conceptual dream in which you have fallen asleep. In other words, essentially, every day, every minute, almost permanently, you could say every second you leave the Garden of Eden, you are fighting against this Garden of Eden. No one is driving you out of there, but you strive to leave. It's as if you have no way to stay there. And so when a boundary appears between you and your life, there is you and your life as two separate things. Your life, your existence becomes radically more complicated. Now you have to learn how to deal with this somehow. If there is such a huge creature next to you, or a wild animal, like a mammoth, you have to do something to protect yourself from it. You need to fight it, attack it, maybe even kill it, or appease it, like pagans did with their gods offering them sacrifices, for example. That's it. Praying to them all the time, establishing some kind of special contact, trying to win their favor, giving up part of your harvest or something else. But the problem is always the same. You and your life are not one and the same. Do you get the idea? And this is a fundamental mistake. A fundamental mistake that makes you suffer every day. The good news is that this isn't actually true at all. You and your life are one and the same. And from this, if you realize and noticed it, the absurdity of any struggle would become obvious. There would be nothing for you to fight against. But let's take a step back, because you are still fighting. Why are you fighting? Because a boundary appears between you and life. This boundary, like any boundary, is a checkpoint, a fence, or barbed wire. Or maybe it's some kind of symbolic boundary, like a curtain on a stage, like curtains that block you from sunlight, for example, in your house or apartment. In other words, a boundary is always needed. A kind of curtain appears between you, and this curtain is woven from concepts, and concepts give rise to expectations. So, in fact, your desire to fight with your life is derived from expectations. Expectations aren't fundamental either. They're actually secondary, because your expectations are a consequence of your concepts. So you have your own plans for life. And if you believe that your life should unfold in a certain way, then if it unfolds differently, you label it as being aggressive towards you. But life has never been aggressive towards you. Existence is incredibly friendly towards you, just like the benevolent God who has often been portrayed as wrathful, destroying entire cities or flooding the whole world with a great deluge. In reality, he never wished harm upon humanity. It is people themselves who have created this struggle, this vendetta within. Perhaps you're familiar with situations, maybe with people where you try to, warm someone and that person attacks you. They see you as an enemy. You want to take care of someone, but that person attacks you in response, not allowing it to happen. It's like a wolf cub caught in the forest. Its leg is injured. You feed it milk, but it bites the hand that gives it the milk, right? That's exactly how you act with life. Life doesn't have any terrible plans for you. Of course, in order to support certain concepts and scare people, most religions be the way, often in a secondary way, as happened in Christianity, came up with the idea of hell. They invented a special place where people who, messed up in some way would end up, but that is just a conceptual vision of God. So in this same anthropocentric understanding, God appeared as a separate being. Separate from whom? Separate from me. Separate from whom else? But of course, separate from evil. And so God appeared, but then you also need a devil. As mentioned in one of the previous videos, in the scene where Walland talks about the necessity of evil, Bulgakov's Walland speaks about the necessity of evil to one of Christ's disciples. This is a very profound observation. In reality, good can only exist if there is evil. So, in order for God to be understood, you also need a devil. Then everything becomes clear. You should strive for one and deliver us from the evil one in relation to the other. But all of this comes from duality, all from the fact that you do not agree that the world is friendly towards you. All you need to do is realize this. That's why you would never get hurt if you didn't have expectations. Expectations make you suffer. Expectations make you agonize. Expectations make you ill. Expectations make you fight with other people. Expectations make you fight with God. If God listens and hears your prayers, you thank Him. If He doesn't hear, you find yourself in a crisis of faith. You say that God doesn't exist at all. I'm disappointed, I'll leave, and things like that. Expectations. In reality, everything that happens in life is wise. There is nothing for you to accept in it. In fact, everything that happens in life is the only thing that could happen. There's nothing for you to accept and nothing to fight against, because what is happening is you. Open this curtain, stop separating yourself from other people, stop separating yourself from your life. You are one. There is nothing else except you. No one except you. Once again, I direct you to this book. It really touches people in some way. Maybe it will touch you as well. Read it, you won't regret it. You can purchase it on our Academy's website. It's called No One But You. No, everything you see around you is you. You have nothing to fight against, nothing left to conquer, nothing to negotiate with, nothing to manipulate. And then you'll have the chance to notice that the world loves you more than you think. Even if you still separate yourself, you will still see that existence as a whole is friendly toward you. Yes, in your life, events always happen that are truly the best possible outcomes. They are precisely what's best for your personal growth, for your spiritual development, if you will. Nothing is accidental. Every event is in its right place. Even if something hurts you today, it doesn't mean something went wrong. Everything is exactly as it should be. You are meant to be here. There is no mistake. There has never been any mistake. Everything is reasonable. And I'm not even talking about karma right now. Karma exists only as long as you are a concept. Right now, I'm talking about your life in general. There is no mistake. You are meant to be exactly where you are. And this is the most valuable place in your life. If someone left you, hurt you, or betrayed you, this is the most valuable place in your life right now. If you lost money, this is the most valuable place in your life for yourself. If something isn't going according to your plans, that's great. It's a blow to your plans, which you don't need. I remember when we were holding an intensive in Dubai, I think we made arrangements with the driver. We liked him. He seemed like a responsible guy. And we asked him to drive us around to some of the iconic places in the Emirates, and agreed, let's start tomorrow morning. He said, all right, I'll be there at 9, God willing. That's typical in Islam. In fact, it's typical for the ideology of any religious culture. If God wills, everything is as it should be. If the car doesn't show up tomorrow, that's an important place for your growth. If your husband cheated on you, it's painful. Or if your child got sick, it's a place you're meant to be. Yes, the lessons aren't always pleasant, but you'll only suffer from them if you expect something different. Then you have an alternative. Either accept it or not. And the alternative is painful, because you only come to accept it through the blows of fate. It is for this very reason that quite often, for individuals to truly discover their authentic nature and inherent purpose, it is usually accompanied by multiple incredibly powerful and often life-altering blows of fate. On the eve of self-realization, many have described experiencing unbearable suffering that intensified with each month or even each week or day. A human being is a rather dim-witted creature. It seems that in order to destroy all concepts down to the very foundation, something has to happen. But often, as you probably know, people usually come, say, to church for the first time at the moment when something happens to them. That's when they turn to God. Or people start thinking about providence, about mysticism, about fate at the moment when they feel really bad, right? At that moment, on the one hand, the weight of all these life blows brings them very close to the point where they stop resisting and fighting. But on the other hand, the desire to resist grows stronger and the suffering becomes even more intense. And at some point, life itself wins out and you find that you have nothing left to fight against, no one left to battle. And even if there are some events that you handled and dealt with easily in your life, that doesn't mean you're a hero. It simply means that these events were meant to be in your life, and you went through these important lessons. Perhaps you are not strong enough to face some more difficult, dramatic events. Don't rush to draw conclusions. Everything you think about your life comes from a very immature concept of this life, very naive, very childlike. And the maturity of yourself will directly determine which concepts and of what strength these concepts will participate in the interpretation of life. But at some point, you need to see that you no longer need an intermediary. You don't need anyone anymore. To meet God, you don't need a church. To meet yourself, you don't need intermediaries. The most important teacher in your life is as close as possible inside you. He has never been anywhere else. Yes, teachers have changed in the form of various manifested figures in your life, but it was you, your concepts, that appointed them. In fact, the essence of a teacher is that he disappears. The essence of a teacher in our lives is that he appears when you are ready. And most importantly, he leaves when you are ready. Everyone remembers that famous phrase by Lao Tzu said to one of his students. I think it was Zhuangzi. The teacher appears when the student is ready. And this is a very popular phrase, but for some reason, its second part is less well known. And the teacher leaves when the student is ready. And this is a very important thing. Many of you probably want to find a teacher, but not many of you are ready to be independent. Not many of you are ready to find true freedom next to a teacher. And for that, you need to discover that very teacher within yourself. And everyone whom you have appointed as a teacher, or even, I don't know, maybe for some of you I am some kind of guide, maybe for some I'm not. I am merely a signpost pointing to you. Everything I say simply highlights the place where the real teacher is. That's all there is to it. So you have nothing to fight against, nothing to accept. There is nothing to fight and no one to defeat. Everything that happens in life happens within you. You are not the character in this whole story. Rather, everything happens within you. It is a play of forms that is being performed within you or upon you. I don't know how to put it more clearly, but it's something like that. This play is unfolding within you, and the entire play is whole play at once, without separating the plot from the characters. It's all you. Everything you see around you, everything you struggle with is you. Can you imagine the level of absurdity? Fighting with yourself. And winning. Remember that famous epic struggle with God? Only the next morning after that struggle did the main character realize he had been fighting with God himself. Why? Maybe it wasn't necessary, but from that, a nation was born. An entire culture was born from it. Well then, my dear friends, let's wrap up. I've given you some reference points. I hope this has given you a foundation to look a little deeper into your own life. My dear friends, don't fight with yourselves. There's no need. You won't be able to defeat anyone except yourself. It's impossible. Peace to your soul. And I'll see you in new videos. Goodbye.